I just want to bring all these great filmmakers up to stage at once. So please welcome them, the Doc NYC shortlist. But on tonight's panel, I really wanted to talk about craft and cinematography, editing, and finally directing, and really hear from these filmmakers, what they were thinking about in their approach to each one of those aspects of filmmaking in making their films this year. I wonder if you could reflect on what you feel proud about in the cinematography in your film.
I think that one of our most significant challenges was to create a space in which the men in the film, particularly Anwar Congo, but he and his confederates, could actually create scenes in whatever way they wish, and we would both document that process and facilitate their shooting of scenes. And there were two basic modes in which we worked. So there were sometimes when we wanted to show how the perpetrators, how we wanted to document what they want to show, what they don't want to show, the reasons they want to show things, the reasons they want to not show other things, in order to see how they want to be seen and how they see themselves. The other crucial challenge was to find across the eclectic language of the film, that it's in all these different genres that we were shooting, that we maintain a coherent moral point of view, a certain kind of distance. So there was all sorts of moral considerations in the photography as well.
You were a first-time filmmaker. Can you talk about what you're happy about in when you watch your film now from the cinematographer's point of view?
Yeah, it's interesting because I know everybody thinks I'm a first-time filmmaker. I did make a film before this that actually had much more cinematography in it, and actually was all original footage. So this was a challenge for me in that I didn't have that outlet. It is very strange to have so much archival footage telling your story, because then so much becomes the storytelling, which is obviously in edit and writing and so forth. But I mean, for us, the original footage or the cinematography, especially with the whales, so it was just travel and then GoPro and then waiting. I mean, just so much of it is just time and the crazy patience, and then try to get the former trainers to be in those same shots was just like this incredibly exhilarating and ridiculously frustrating dance.
And if I had to give my film a kind of subtitle, it could have easily been The Man Who Lived in a Chair, because my cousin Edwin basically stayed in a chair every waking moment, although he slept in the chair for much of the day from over the years. But so I was rather limited in what I could film and where I could film it. But that limitation became, in its way, both an opportunity and became a kind of infinity in a way, because I really found that I began to love his face. I began to really explore his face. So I wasn't afraid to make close-ups of his face. There are a lot of close-ups in the film. I began the film before before HD was as prevalent as it is now. And so the film was begun years and years ago on mini DV, which is a 4:3 aspect ratio, in which Edwin's face fits the frame quite prominently. And there's not a lot above, below. Often there's not a lot above, below, or to the sides. And I had a decision to make in the middle of shooting, when now there are some pressures to shoot in HD about distribution and broadcast and things like that. And I had to make a decision, and I consulted with various people, and everyone said, do not change formats midstream. Like I wasn't going to have 4:3 and suddenly it would go wide. And not only was that, I think, a wise technical choice, but for a film like First Cousin Once Removed, had I filmed it HD and put his face in the frame, I don't think it would have nearly the impact. I don't think it would have nearly the power, because there would be so much to look at to the left and to the right and above and below him. But the 4:3 facilitated a focus on the topography of his face.
I chose to make Crash Reel in part because it was such a visually spectacular opportunity that it kind of got me excited as a filmmaker. But what got me most excited was the story, and it's these intimate moments and the cinematography of this observation of these family moments in this extraordinary family, and seeing the transformation. It's one of the things I love the most about documentary, is seeing, sort of almost capturing, glimpsing the life machinery as you're with people in these very difficult moments, but that you can see the kind of forces of time and just the forces working on people's lives where the change of direction happens. And it's a quiet observational job. And my partner in crime, Nick Higgins, and I, typically just him and me, we've had 2 cameras, and we've been kind of breaking in the second operator who keeps working with primes, and we're like, he's just like, primes. You know, you got to be quicker than changing those prime lenses. You know, get that zoom on and let go of the prime already, because we're shooting some very rapid response stuff. We're shooting a C300, a fantastic camera for this kind of opportunity. And we have a scene, for example, a Thanksgiving dinner scene, and one of my fun things at Q&As or with film students, I love talking to film students about it, is saying, how many cameras do you think we had in this scene? I'll show them the scene, and they say, I can't decide if it's 4 or 3 or 5. I'm like, that is one camera with Mr. Nicholas Higgins on the end of it. And me recording sound and trying not to kill anybody with my boom pole. And another thing that I must say I'm a bit weird about, and people are always, I was just filming and everyone kept bringing me monitors, and I'm like batting them away. I mean, I love a monitor. If there's enough time for me to look at a monitor, of course, monitors rule. However, when you don't have enough time or space, and there's like 4 more people like getting in the way, and you don't get the shot because the director wants to see it, I trust the DP so much. He's off the leash. You know, I love those moments where you find in a shot, you can tell the visual story just with these, you know, and the lovely opportunity with documentary is often you're in the field for a long time and you have time to reflect and notice and find those visual details that really can help tell your story.
So the thing I'm most proud about is the transitions in the film. There's a street preacher, for instance, on every corner. And the street preachers, sometimes there's dueling street preachers, one on each corner. And there's one moment in the film where we're filming this street preacher, and he's preaching about homosexuality, and then we pan across to another street preacher who's like preaching about abortion. And it's like a dueling street preacher. It's intense. And the other thing is that there's this one scene that I really, really love, which is there's a church on every corner. There's all-night prayers, vigils, and there was this one church, the largest church in Kampala, and there's this massive room where people pray round the clock, walking, pacing back and forth, and the room's all white, and people are speaking in tongues and walking, and it looks like an insane asylum. I mean, it looks really, and it's just constant, and I recorded the sound and of that and used that as part of the bed in part of the soundtrack, because it was so amazing, this sort of constant speaking in tongues. It was just so beautiful. It's like sort of lyrical. But the imagery of a sort of shallow depths of field, these people crossing and just sort of, you know, convulsing. So it was really capturing all that intense hysteria.
I really wanted to have the film be shown through the eyes of the public defender, so I really wanted to create this experience for people watching it as if they were going through what the public defenders were going through. So I'm very much in the Lucy camp of you hire people who you trust, and I had these 2 great guys who were Southern, and we definitely got this language, because if we were disruptive, we would get kicked out or our access would be denied. So I could not do a lot of talking or a lot of pointing or whatever. So I really had to trust that I had 2 camera guys. One was really a sound guy, but like they let him bring a camera in, so we kind of cheated that way and got another angle. But the things I love the most are when you can stay in a moment. So there's 2 things that I love. There's a moment in a courtroom where there's been kind of a betrayal, and somebody who has to testify against somebody else, he pushes away his family, and he just has his head in his hands. And that was just good old observational, keeping your eye out. There's all this stuff going on, and just capturing that moment. And then I really love, we're traveling with one of our main characters, and Chris, who is the main DP, has a very good ability to just stay in the moment, which is a really hard thing to do. We just get this one tear coming down in really low light, which is also a really hard thing to do. And it was not only a testament to his craft, to Chris's craft as a DP, but also to the trust of the character he stayed in the moment too. Like, he didn't push away, he didn't come out of it. He just, like, by that point, we were so in it all together that we were all experiencing it.
I mean, from a shooting point of view, I think the thing that I thought about in the beginning was the subject matter, and just thinking about these women, their quality, their faces, and something about the whole thing, I wanted it to be very warm and very analog feeling. And I'm not a huge fan of HD resolution. I mean, HD's fine, but I think resolution is overrated in a big way. And I miss the soft 16 days, and especially for a subject like this, I wanted it to feel very warm. First of all, their faces are very large in the frame. It also gives you a very narrow depth of field. So there's a lot of people going in and out of focus, which I love. So I have no problem with that. And I just felt like as long as you're there in the moment with them, and you're enjoying their face and feeling the warmth of that moment, that's how I approached the interviews. My idea is once a session starts, we're going to vanish as much as possible, and we did that, and it worked well. But I felt like I said, that we had this entire range of cinematic experiences from the lo-fi to hi-fi.
So trying to navigate that, to allow yourself to be overwhelmed, to remember, to figure out when it's safe to speak from the heart, to know that it's important to be honest with the people you're filming if you want to be close to them. That is, to say honestly that you think what they've done is wrong at the moments when it's safe to do so, to know when you have to be quiet to protect your crew. That, I think, was certainly the most profound challenge in making the film.
I think about filmmaking, and I always say this when I'm speaking to any sort of filmmaking student, or filmmakers who are looking to get into documentary. So you have this film, right? And you tend to think it's this big, thing unto itself, like the gestalt. I have a film. Oh my gosh, how in the world? What mysterious, magical way did I get this thing? And it seems like it's big. It's more than the sum of its parts, but it's really just its parts.
I've probably seen it with audiences 100 times or more. I lost count. First of all, every screening is different. And I'm still, for me, having finished a film doesn't mean I'm done with it. When I screen it with a film, with an audience, I learn by watching an audience experience it how I've done or what I've done. There are still things that I'm processing about my film that help me both understand what I hoped I'd done, what I thought I'd done, what I wanted to do, and all of that calibrated in some way so that I'm still learning about filmmaking in the process of doing that. And then also and I don't hold it against filmmakers, and I don't want to say it's disingenuous, but there's something about being in the room when the film is over, stepping up and then talking to the audience about the film that we have just seen. And I feel connected to the room. I didn't just show up and go have dinner or get drunk or something. And I have no problem with that if that's what people do. But I'm in the room, I was in the audience, I saw it with them, and I was part of the collective experience of that. So I know what they saw, I know how they responded, and it actually affects how I feed back.
And part of being a director is being crazy enough to say yes. And I had an agent I'm no longer working with who was like, when are you going to get to work? And I don't know, you just got to pursue crazy, interesting things. I think that's partly about being a director, is just following odd curiosities.
As a director, I want to go to places that completely terrify me and challenge me, because I have ADD. I want to be sort of on the edge all the time. And so I had demonized, the subjects of my film. I had demonized the sort of fundamentalist evangelical right so much, and I was like, okay, these are people who want to kill me because I'm gay. These are people who, preach hate, but what happened is that as I went on this journey, and as I went on this journey, the audience also went on this journey with me. So as I got to know them, they became more human, and we became friends, and I was able to gain this sort of intimacy and access with them that everyone always asks me, how did you get such access? It's because I spent time with them and got to know them, and they became human. They became just friends.
The hardest thing about making this film was eliminating things. And that metaphor of there's the sculpture inside of the chunk of marble, and you just have to know which bits to take away. It was like that was the whole process. Just it can't be this, it can't be this, it can't be this. Eliminate, take away.
It was actually very difficult coming from a news background in particular to shift to documentary because I think it's been really fun to listen to people. And I think one of the differences between news reporting and documentary filmmaking is I think the documentary process is more an exercise in understanding. I think we're trying to understand what motivates our subjects, but also maybe what's different or what is moving us. I spent 8 years at ABC telling people to be fair and accurate and balanced, and then you get into an edit room and you're not balanced. I have an opinion, and you are in your movie. So I think that's the hardest thing is not clinging to the fiction of objectivity, but allowing yourself to go on this journey and to also explore what is it about these people that is so compelling.
Thank you very much for coming. Thanks especially to our shortlist.
Thank you.